Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Redmen TV and the Deep Dive. My name is Dan Clubb. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the brilliant Josh Williams for this. Of course, it's Josh Williams, it's the Deep Dive. Josh, how are you, mate? You okay?
I'm all right, yeah. I did get replaced last week, though, you say that. I got replaced by Ted Nutson for an episode, I think.
Not bitter about it, though? No?
Well, a little bit. The last person who replaced me was Pep Linders, so I don't mind stepping aside every now and then for these Giants.
Well, I'm stepping in for the Giants. Obviously, Chris Pajak is not around. He'll be around for a few weeks, and I am attempting to fill the sizable shoes that he's left behind, but we'll have a good go. And we're here to talk about what we've learned from pre-season. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to be over in Hong Kong and Tokyo, covering those elements of it, and obviously it's a Preston game prior to that, and as we've just seen a double-header against Athletic Club on Monday night. Before we dive into the topics, we've got a few talking points we want to discuss. Just generally, what have been your thoughts and sort of how positive the vibes have been from pre-season?
Yeah, it's been interesting to follow. It's nice to have a pre-season where we're getting used to a number of new players. Usually, I found myself last season, obviously I write about Liverpool, I cover Liverpool on Substack and things like that, and when no one signs, I was relying heavily on, well, what's Arne Slot doing here?
Little tactical tweaks and
exactly,
stuff. Yeah,
exactly. But this summer, you're leaning on both. You've got lots of different changes to navigate there, and Liverpool scoring plenty of goals, conceding a few as well, which has been interesting. But lots to talk about, though.
Yeah, there certainly is. Yeah, we'll dive straight into it then in that case. And there is really only one place to start. He's been sort of like the main talking point from pre-season, I think it's fair to say. Probably the standout performer in many senses, which is something given the kid's age. It is boy wonder. It's Rio and Ngamo himself. And when we were speaking prior to doing the show, obviously one of the topics you brought forward was Rio is a genuine option. And my first question to you is why? And twofold, really. Why is he a genuine option? And to you, what does a genuine option entail? Because is it Carabao Cup minutes here and there? Or is it more than that? Because obviously we've lost Luis Diaz. He's left behind, I think it was over 3,000 minutes worth of action. Is Rio Ngamo a genuine option for that?
No, that's a step too far, I think. It's a good question, though. I've been weighing it up myself, and it is difficult to find an answer for that for these young players, and you're not really sure. Even despite the impact he's had in pre-season, he's still yet to play more than an hour. I think the recent game against Bilbao, I think he plays about 63 or something and then comes off. So if he's playing in the Premier League against fully grown adults, you want to give him, I think, spurts like that, max an hour, ideally half an hour at the end of a game when everyone's tired. So I think he's a genuine option in that he could realistically play more minutes than Chiesa did last season, which is a low bar. But I think going into this summer, I'm not sure that was my stance. Going into this summer, I thought I still grouped him as a kid who is touring with the adults. But I think now he just doesn't look out of place. The analogy I always use is, if you imagine all of the players on the pitch as silhouettes, and you don't know what they look like, you don't know how tall they are, you don't know how old they are or anything, and you just watch the game play out, he would look like a star player based on what we've seen. He's not yet, but there's quite clearly talent and quality already there despite his age. So yeah, whatever that is that I've just said is the option that I'm considering. But yeah, I think if he was to come on the final half an hour in certain games at a push, starting in the Premier League, like at home to Sunderland or something, I can see. I don't want to go too far on that, though. What about you?
I must admit, I'm somewhat surprised that you touched on that last point there about starting games in the Premier League. I must admit, and I'm his biggest fan. I'm so torn that we spoke about this prior to going live. I'm having literal arguments with myself about Rio Ngamo. And in one breath, I'm saying, let the kid go. He's supremely talented. We've seen what he's all about in pre-season. 2 goals and assists, I think he ends up with, and brilliant goals at that as well. So I'm saying that on one hand, and the next breath I'm saying, yeah, but he's 16, turned 17 this month.
Yeah,
and my biggest, I always don't want to sort of stunt the development of these kids, but also don't want to sort of do them any harm by just throwing them in and saying, on you go. You have to be really careful with the management of lads of this age, albeit, again, supremely talented. But I've watched a lot of him, under 18s, under 21s, and his decision making's got better and better. His end product is getting better and better. However, when it comes to like numbers, like if you're looking for numbers, he hasn't really produced numbers under 18, under 21 level. Yeah. He's been star of the show more often than not. He's clearly stood out in terms of what he can do. His ability to beat a man is pretty much unrivaled when it comes to like academy football, I think it's fair to say, across the country. But he's not banging goals in left, right and centre. Like when you've seen sort of like youngsters burst onto the scene previously, I'm talking like different generations of youngsters as well, they've been scoring goals for fun at academy level that you just can't ignore. Like I always went Neil Mellor. It wasn't quite the same. It's a different sort of level. But
Michael Owen as well.
Michael Owen did the same, exactly. Yeah. But I had a conversation with Neil recently, and he was banging goals in. You couldn't ignore the goals he was scoring. Rio isn't doing that with goals or assists yet. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult one to sort of square off in my head about where he's at and what you can get from him. But yeah, there's no two ways about the kid's ability and his talent. Are
you surprised then, based on what we've seen in pre-season so far? Or no. Is that what you knew he was?
I knew he was that. And it hasn't shocked me in any way, because I thought the Accrington appearance was enough of a sample size to just... The only question mark I had about him was how fearless is he? And the answer is extremely. Yeah. Like, he plays any game of footy like he's playing with his mates on the park.
Yeah, I don't know.
He just wants to get the ball, wants to run at people, wants to take people on, wants to be direct, wants to make things happen. Now, he's been that ever since he arrived. What's improved and what's come on leaps and bounds is what he does next. In terms of, does he lay it off? Does he go himself? Is there an option to shoot? Those bits of his game have improved dramatically. But I don't know. Again, I'll come back to my original point on it, and we'll talk more about him in a moment. But I just think, because Liverpool are clearly Louis Diaz light now, and they do appear to be looking in-house for the solution, that is a lot of Rio and Gamoa. But I just think to replace the goals, assists, and the minutes feels too big, far too big a leap from prospect to that. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I think that's the problem, really. I think the Sunderland example that I used is purely because Gakpo can't play all the time. Mm-hmm. There's going to be times where Gakpo needs a break. And as it stands right now, it looks like Rio's the backup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, that's in theory where he gets minutes. And if you're getting linked with someone like a Fofana from Lyon, he's only 20. So by signing him, you're always blocking Rio's pathway, which you don't want to do. But is Rio ready right now? It feels a little bit like Trent when Trent comes on the scene. He's not quite ready. But Nathaniel Klein's a bit of a, you know, in and out the team, and Liverpool don't want to sign a new right back because we've got funds to dedicate elsewhere. So we end up just trusting Trent, but a little bit too early. And he takes time to bed in, but then when he does bed in, he's brilliant. So it is difficult. I think generally when it comes to these kids, there's a reason they're able to bridge the gap to the adults. Usually it's because they're elite at something. I think that something is probably his dribbling.
Yeah.
His close control. He's got the dribbling ability and the close control and all that sort of thing of a seasoned Premier League wide player. You know, he beats men for fun, going both ways. He can get some product on the end of the dribbles as well. And when you think of Slot's game, it's very much about establishing one-on-ones out wide, that he's perfect for that. So I can see that's why he's bridging the gap, but because of his age, there will be other elements to his game that are nowhere near adult level yet. For example, you know, he's still got the frame of a boy, you know, so he's going to just get shoved out the way if he's trying to dribble past, I don't know, Ben White or something like that. No, right back at Arsenal or something. So
yeah, what else we've seen, I think, a lot, and we've seen it forever, really, when it comes to Liverpool's wing. Sadio Mane used to do it, but I think Gakpo and Diaz in particular at times last season, what really stood out for me was getting back and helping defensively.
That's
and putting a shift in that way. And Rio Gamoa, I'm sure, be willing, but to your point about his physique, he just doesn't have that side of his game yet, not developed enough yet to be able to do that. So I think that's somewhere elsewhere. Whilst, you know, if you're chasing a game where you want something to happen in an attacking sense, he does feel like the perfect X-Factor wild card because, again, backs himself to the absolute maximum, takes people on, beats people for fun, as you rightly say. But the other way, I'm not as convinced, you know, so I just, again, it's only sort of born out of what we know about Liverpool's squad right now, and there's no real movement. Obviously, we'll touch on the attacking department in full in a moment, but the Isak stuff, the centre-forward stuff is hot right now. There's no talk. Fofana was mentioned, obviously, Anthony Gordon further back than that, Rodrigo, but there's no viable left-wing options getting spoken about at all. Therefore, as you rightly say, it's Gakpo and then Ngamo, and you look at your squad depth. That, to me, feels Gakpo might look at it and relish opportunities to get more minutes, but he can't play every single game.
No. And the thing is as well, there is obviously the prospect of what if Gakpo just gets a knock? And when I'm talking a knock, I'm talking like he misses 3 games. But them 3 games are in the space of 7 days. Rio has to start all 3. And one of them's against Newcastle away or something like that. You know, you just...
You're asking a lot.
Yeah, you want to keep the pathway open, but you also don't want to be in a position where suddenly you're playing him all the time, and he's not ready. He's not quite ready for that yet. So maybe you have to adjust to keep him on the bench, and you play Ekatike on the left or something like that, thus having an impact on your system and stuff. So it is an interesting one. I am kind of the view that I think, I know you've just said you're not surprised, but I wonder if Liverpool have gone into this summer, maybe Arne Slot especially, because Arne Slot probably sees him a little bit less or something, but I think maybe the plan at the start of the summer might have been a tiny bit different to what it looks like now because of how well he's done.
Okay.
And because of the genuine prospect of blowing all your budget on Isak, which maybe at the start of the summer was a pipe dream.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Liverpool are probably toying with the option, I think, of we can genuinely get Isak here, but we can't get a left-sided forward as well to replace Diaz over there.
Mm-hmm.
Can Rio be that stopgap almost? Can Rio fill that void a bit, you know, to a certain extent? And I think Liverpool are weighing that up. And I think at the start of the summer, I'm not sure that would have been a possibility.
No, I think that's a fair assessment of it. And I think what Rio's shown again is that level of quality and that ability. And he's probably done that in training more often than not as well, because he trained with the first team a lot last year. I think when he did get opportunities in and around the first team on match days, he impressed as well. For what it's worth, I mentioned the Accrington one. I was blown away, albeit with all due respect, only Accrington. That was the one test I wanted to see. When he steps up to the first team, when he steps up to men's level, does he still have that? I just want to take people on, and he did. So that was it for me. The minute I saw him do that, I went, "Oh, we're fine here. This kid's absolutely got it."
I was specifically impressed when he came up against Tomori.
Yes,
for AC Milan. Like he's a seasoned defender. You know, knows his craft. Spent the past few years in Italy as well. Good physical specimen too. And Rio was taking him to cleaners at times. Like, I mean, Tomori just didn't know what way he was going to go. Rio still has that element of surprise with his game. Maybe once defenders start to recognise who he is and figure him out a little bit, they'll find it a bit easier to anticipate what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Tomori is as good of a defensive right back as he's going to face in the Premier League. So that did a lot for me regarding, you know, my perception on him and what he can do for Liverpool.
No, absolutely, yeah. And as you say, Tomori's, you know, a properly established defender now. He's been around the block a few times. Just you mentioned before we went live about Rio sort of running with momentum a little bit on youngsters. Do you think, in terms of obviously heading into the season, Community Shield, I would be amazed if he wasn't in around that matchday squad in particular. There's still obviously transfer time left when it comes to the window, but you think Liverpool are somewhat just looking at what he's doing and just saying, do you know what, there's a kid who's hot here, let's just play the hot hand for a little bit? Yeah,
well, it's a shame that he's running hot in pre-season, so it's not ideal. But Jürgen was really good at this. Jürgen was really good at, like, using players when they're in a good moment. So if he brings on Origi last minute and he scores a winner, the next game Jürgen would just start Origi, because he's in that moment of confidence. You've got that momentum behind you. And I think generally when it comes to playing the kids, that's how it looks. And as soon as they have any kind of wobble, take them out of the team for a few weeks, don't worry about it. When they get the next chance, if he does well in that, 10-minute cameo or something, then he features a bit more moving forward. So I think Rio's in a state at the moment where if he plays anything like this in the actual season, use him often in these moments. But as I said, be really mindful of, like, not breaking him, which does happen.
No, it does, yeah, because you've got to think about both elements of it. You've got to think of what you're getting in terms of performance and output, and is he for the betterment of Liverpool's chances of winning games of football? You want to give him opportunities, of course you do, but you're absolutely spot on. I think you've got to be so mindful of not physically overdoing it. And Liverpool, we've been caught out by that. Stefan Bajcetic isn't probably the most recent example of us just overplaying youngsters, and he was a couple of years older than Rio is now. Yeah,
honestly, there's loads of examples. I think Arteta's done it with Saka. I know Saka's a lot older now, but he's played a lot of minutes for his age. I think Bellingham will probably hit a point eventually because he's the minutes he's played as a kid. Barcelona seem to do it all the time. I think they did with Fati. Barcelona seems to unearth these gems every season, to be honest, but they do break them quickly. And Michael Owen is the ultimate example, really.
Just finally on Rio, then I want to sort of like. We've been really positive about him because there's loads to be positive about. We've been cautious. I'm very keen to be cautious when it comes to Rio. Let's put it like that.
Like so,
It's hard not to get carried away when you watch what he's doing. Ultimately, you know what I mean? Because he just terrifies defenders left, right, and centre. But I do think whatever Liverpool decide to do with him in the short term, when you look at the medium and long term, we've got again a supreme talent on our hands. Yeah,
he's a big talent. Like, he's depicting shades of Sterling. I've seen a few people say that, but it's true. And Michael Owen is another one who just came on the scene and just grabbed the spotlight and that fearless nature. I remember seeing an interview with Michael Owen. He said something like, he said up until the age of like 23 or something like that, he just never ever doubted himself on a pitch. He just only knew kind of success, and he only knew himself flourishing on the pitch. There was no elements of self-doubt there. And Rio, when he gets the ball and faces up someone like a Tomori, he just happily has a go at him. Like, it's amazing to see. So I think he's a big talent. Lots to work on still, which is, even more exciting, to be honest. He's 6 years younger than Harvey Elliott, by the way.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Honestly, yeah, I'm so excited to watch what happens next for him, really. Whatever guys that is, whatever Liverpool choose, whatever Liverpool decide to do, he is just, and I love seeing academy lads come through. I know he hasn't really come through the academy, but still, we'll claim him as ours. But there is something about this sort of thing that just, again, as a Liverpool fan, just really excites me, and he mesmerises everyone when they watch him. Next topic, it kind of leads on from what we've just been skirting around in many ways. It's Liverpool's attacking department as a whole, because I want to talk about the squad depth elements of it, because obviously we touched on the left wing in particular. Obviously, Hugo Ekitike is now in situ. Mo Salah owns the right wing position. Cody Gakpo, you could argue, owns the left wing position. And after that, I've got Rio and Gamoa down as like a nailed-on option after what we've just discussed there. Because then I think we're into question mark territory, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Because at time of recording, Darwin Núñez is seemingly somewhat on the brink of his Liverpool exit. Al Hilal, very much the front runners for his signature. Ben Doak, I'm a big admirer of Ben Doak, and I thought he had a good game the other night, actually, for its worth at Anfield. But major question marks around him. I've seen links yesterday, I think it was to West Ham and maybe Crystal Palace. Federico Chiesa is the other one. And while we were talking about Ngamoa, lots of me was thinking, you might just have to keep Chiesa around here a little bit. But let's work off the premise that it's Hugo Ekitike, it's Mo Salah, it's Cody Gakpo, and then it's Rio and Ngamoa. That's just not enough footballers, ultimately, is it? Like, that's nowhere near enough.
No, it's really weird, actually, because it feels like Liverpool have done tons of business. But at the moment, depth-wise, we look a bit of a shambles. Like, we've got about 2.5 centre-halves at the moment. And as you say, up front, it is a weird dynamic. Like, I've just put this on the board now to illustrate kind of what we're working towards for the start of the season. Like, even if we get Alexander Isak in, that's kind of what it looks like in terms of one genuine right-sided forward in Mo Salah, one genuine left-sided forward in Cody Gakpo, 2 nines who I can't really picture on the same pitch in Ekitike and Isak. And then the backup to Salah is probably Frimpong. And that's why I've used a different colour, because he's not really a genuine right-sided forward, Frimpong. He's more of a wing-back or a full-back. So it's a kind of square peg round hole vibe there. And on the other side, Rio is a genuine left-sided forward, but he's 16, 17 and has never really been considered that. So if Liverpool go into the season with that as the setup, it does look like we've thrown a lot of eggs in the Isak basket, as in we're blowing the budget on this fella, but as a result sacrificing the depth we had last season almost. Like, we had 6 forwards last season, and that's excluding like the 10s, in Szoboszlai or Harvey Elliott or whatever. But this time around, it's not looking like that. And to have the depth at the 9 spot is a bit weird for me, because
it's not very us.
No, it's not. But if you think about what the wide players have to do, the wide players have to track back a fair bit more. and they have to be really fresh for the one-on-ones and all that. They have to be rapid and stuff. So, whereas the 9 feels to me at least that he does probably a bit less run. So to have to sub the 9 on 60 minutes, it just feels, I don't know, if you're going to have depth, I would have thought we'd have depth out here as opposed to here. But yeah, it's definitely a concern that no one's really touching on, because we seem to be buying everyone, as I said, but we have not got the deepest squad up front.
No, not at all. No, this is what I wanted to sort of nail down on it a little bit more, because to your point about the right winger, obviously you mentioned Frimpong there, but Conor Bradley, time of recording, is currently out with an injury that we're not quite sure of. So Frimpong immediately is just the right back, and he may well be that anyway, regardless. But straight away, you've lost that. Harvey Elliott, again, as I'm recording, looks to be on his way potentially to Leipzig as the Xavi Simons replacement out there. So I was never in love with him as a right wing option to back up Salah personally, but it's an option that's maybe not on the board anymore, you know. So straight away, we are lighter than even right now. But the centre forward thing, I'll touch on that in a bit more detail, because that's fascinating to me. And maybe we have gone obviously heavy on Ekitike, potentially even heavier in terms of marquee signings on Alexander Isak still to come. There's lots of moving parts with that one. But does this say to you, squad depth will remain an issue, but in terms of the way Arne Slot wants his team to function and wants his team to work, we had lots of discussions last year about his previous sides have always been quite centre forward heavy, and they've been the focal point. A lot's gone through them. He turns up at Liverpool, Mo Salah's the man, clearly. But this summer transfer window, and maybe still yet to happen, does suggest maybe that Slot wants more focus on this central position. Yeah,
I would say so. And I think if you are leaning towards Isak as well, one of the small concerns attached to him, considering he's a £150 million player, is the availability side. So if you can bring him off on the hour every now and then when you're 3-0 up ideally, and you can bring on Ekitike, it gets Isak as rest. So I can see the logic there. And I think when Liverpool were navigating their Salah contract issue, one of the reasons I thought that just had to be done at all costs is because Liverpool needed to buy themselves time to adequately replace him in the attack, not necessarily positionally, but just as output elsewhere. Mm-hmm. What did he register last season in the Premier League? Was it something like 50 scoring returns or something like that? Or something like 50 or something. So you lose that when Salah goes, and Salah probably goes in 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at how and where you find those goals and assists, it's just relatively rare to find a right-sided forward who is left-footed and has tons of output to his game. If you can find that in the centre forward, and we've picked up 2 of them, or we haven't picked up Isak, potentially picking up 2 of them, do it. So I can see the logic there. I think there's an element of future planning there, as in for now we'll just have everyone getting in goals, but when Salah leaves, his replacement's virtually guaranteed to score and assist less. It's virtually guaranteed. Yeah. So you need this fella to do more. That's where the budget's gone. So I'm generally in favour of that, and I think in the 2 years between now and then, we will probably thrive. But yeah, the cost of these players, Ekitike wasn't cheap, and he's looking like, I mean, if you pick Liverpool's strongest side out, I don't think Ekitike makes it if Isak is signed. So we're spending a lot of money on these players, and that's why we're struggling with the depth. But you could potentially be navigating a 60 odd game season. Yeah.
I was literally about to say Liverpool will set their target to play 60 games of football. Yeah. And that, to me, listen, we've got so much hope and belief in Mbeumo, of course we have, and we may well get our questions answered when it comes to him. He might just be ready. And on you go, plug and play. You could be the Luis Diaz replacement in happy days. The right side, it feels slightly more complicated because the thing we just touched upon, didn't even mention it's AFCON year. So we will literally lose Salah for a period of time anyway. So that, once again, reduces the options on this side. Again, if Isak arrives, we have no issues whatsoever when it comes up through the middle. The final point I wanted to sort of make on this, centres, obviously, in terms of the creativity, I think we're okay because Florian Wirtz.
Well, I was going to say, Wirtz is like a hidden gem here when it comes to the attack, really, because it remains to be seen exactly how Slot is viewing him. Because I think he's kind of in that space between a forward and a midfielder. Mm-hmm. So let's say Gakpo is injured and we're coming up against Man City. Mm-hmm. I think there's potential for
to do that one,
to put Wirtz over there, and you know, then you would have a midfield three of Szoboszlai, McAllister and Gravenberch, like you've just had last season anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's scope for that. I just wanted to throw that in there, like, because
no, it's a fair point.
Bates is a really versatile tool that we can use there.
No, absolutely. That was going to be the point, really, in terms, like, again, he is, for me, he's the 10, and I think he's been bought to play the 10.
Yes.
But with him being able to do that, it could well be a blessing. And we've spoken a lot about, obviously, the Rio stuff and what is the backup to Gakpo. Wirtz may well just fill that void where necessary. And the only other point I wanted to touch upon, and it comes from a versatility standpoint more than anything else, really, it is Federico Chiesa. Because I do think what we're looking at right now, if Liverpool don't address right wing, left wing, and we do just focus so heavily on getting the Isak deal over the line, then we've got centre-back issues and priorities to deal with without a shadow of a doubt. Is there a world where you just keep Federico Chiesa around? Because he can play both sides, and if you really want him to, through the middle.
Well, this is the weird thing. It's been such a baffling signing, honestly, because every time I have to touch on him on this kind of show, I only see logic in using him a bit more. And him being an option. As you say, he can play both sides, really two-footed, intense, so he suits I suppose, like the working class side of the team where you put your graft in and that. You know, he's an Italian international, he's played in the Champions League regularly, he's good on the dribble, so he can use the one-on-ones, he's relatively quick. But he never gets used. He didn't even go on a trip, did he, to Asia? Because he picked up a knock, whatever that was. I thought that was probably just a transfer, but it wasn't.
He scored on the day they travelled in that behind closed doors friendly against Stoke, and then never travelled.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, but as I said, I only see logic in using him more. But every time I say that, we don't see him for 6 months. Then, so it's baffling. It's baffling. He seems like a good lad. He speaks the language and everything. I can't get my head around why he's not being used a bit more. Not like a starter every week, but he's such a useful option. Yeah. It's baffling to me. I don't know about you.
Well, no, I agree. And we may well see more of him through necessity, given what we've spoken about here, because I think one of the things we have learned from pre-season at this moment now when it comes to transfer activity and, of course, what we've seen on the pitch is we are lacking a little bit in the depth, certainly in the wide areas, and Chiesa may well just be the answer to that. And it's a difficult one because I'm sure he would ideally have moved away by now. I know there's Serie A interest, and that's obviously back to Italy, to World Cup year, etc., etc., etc. So, but if Liverpool can promise, guarantee, and offer him more minutes, then it may well just be suitable for him to stick around. I do think Liverpool would be better for that as it stands.